Not all people pleasers are the same, and the fastest way to break the pattern is to figure out which type you are. In this video, I'll show you the 3 main types of people pleasing, and at the end, I'll also share 2 sneaky, unexpected types you might not even realize are people pleasing at all. So stick around to see if one of those is actually you. I've seen this over and over with my clients, especially high achievers. They think their drive and their helpfulness are just who they are, basically, but it's often deeply tied to people pleasing. And when you understand what type you are, you can finally stop running your wheels and actually start setting boundaries that feel natural and sustainable. And if you're into content about mastering your mind, overcoming limiting beliefs, building strong boundaries, and achieving more with less struggle, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a like on this video. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps more people find this message too. Okay, let's get into it. All right, let's start with the first type, which is the high achiever. The achiever is the one who earns love through success. If this is you, you probably grew up in an environment where love, attention, or even just safety felt conditional. You learned early on that when you did well, when you got the A, when you were responsible, when you performed, you got praise. You felt seen, you felt worthy. And at the same time, when you slowed down, when you failed, when you showed weakness, you may have felt criticized, rejected, or invisible. So your nervous system wired itself to believe, I have to keep achieving. If I stop, I might lose love. This type of people pleasing is rooted in conditional love and performance-based worth. And if you're the achiever, you're probably either anxious or avoidant anxious in your relationships, because deep down you fear that without the gold stars, you'll be seen as lazy, bad, or not good enough. So how does this actually show up? You're constantly striving. Even when you hit a goal, the satisfaction only lasts a moment. And then you're already chasing the next one. You take on too much work, overwork, you over-deliver, and you feel guilty when you rest. Does it ring a bell? You might even notice this pattern in your relationships too. You're the one who goes above and beyond, planning, fixing, keeping things together, because somewhere inside you believe that if you stop giving 110%, you lose connection. And you might also have a hard time saying no to work, to favors, to anything that makes you seem like less than the best. Because saying no feels like admitting failure, and your self-worth is deeply tied to being seen as the one who can handle it all. So what do you need to work on if you are the achiever type? Your growth starts with separating your value from your output. You're already enough, whether you hit that next milestone or not. You don't have to earn love by doing more. The work here is practicing rest without guilt, letting yourself receive without performing, and learning to say no. Not because you can't do it all, but because you don't have to. And when you start to really believe that your worth isn't tied to your achievements, everything starts to feel lighter. You can, of course, still succeed, but it won't feel like you're running for your life anymore. You'll just be satisfied and happy while you're achieving. So that's the achiever type, the one who earns love through success. Let's move on to the second type, the helper, the one who earns love by meeting everyone else's needs. And if you already recognize yourself in this pattern and you want to rewire it on a deep nervous system and subconscious level, my Mind Mastery community is where I help you do exactly that. We use tools like EMDR, somatic techniques, and mindset rewiring to create real, lasting change. You'll find the link below in the description and in the pinned comment. The lowest tier starts at just $9 a month, and you can join anytime. All right, now let's move on to the second type, the helper. The second type is the helper. The helper is the one who earns love by meeting everyone else's needs. If this is you, you probably grew up in a family where being useful or taking care of others made you feel safe and valued. Maybe you were the emotional support even for your parents. Maybe you learned early on that other people's needs came before yours, and that being needed was the closest you could get to feeling loved. So of course, you became the person everyone could count on. You probably absorbed the message that your feelings, your desires, your rest, all of that could wait, because someone else always needed you more. Psychologically, this is rooted in enmeshment and codependency, where your sense of self got tangled up with taking care of others. You might also fear abandonment or rejection if you stop helping. So you keep overgiving because being needed feels like your only safety. And if this is you, your attachment style is often anxious, preoccupied, always scanning for what others need, afraid of being left if you don't show up perfectly. How does the helper show up in everyday life? You're the one who jumps in to help before anyone even asks. You're always anticipating needs, fixing, soothing, supporting, and sometimes even resenting that no one seems to notice how much you do. But you rarely let yourself stop because you feel guilty if you're not helping. You probably feel uncomfortable receiving, and when someone offers you help, it feels awkward, like you're taking up too much space or being selfish. You're so used to being the giver that you don't even know what you really want anymore. And deep down, you may fear that if you're not useful, you're irrelevant, or worse, unlovable. What do you need to work on if you're the helper? Your growth starts with realizing that you don't have to earn your place in other people's lives by constantly giving. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to take up space. The work here is practicing saying no without guilt, letting others take care of their own problems, and actually receiving help without apologizing for it. When you stop measuring your worth by how much you give, you can actually start building relationships that are balanced, where your needs matter just as much as everyone else's. So that's the helper, the one who earns love by meeting everyone else's needs. Next, we'll look at the third type, the avoider, the one who earns safety by keeping the peace. So, number 3, the avoider. The avoider is the one who earns safety by keeping the peace. If this is you, you probably grew up in an environment where conflict felt dangerous. Maybe arguments led to yelling, punishments, or even emotional withdrawal. You learned early on that speaking up, disagreeing, or even having needs of your own could make things worse. So you learned to stay quiet, to shrink yourself, to smooth things over. You started believing that if you just kept everyone happy, you could avoid rejection, anger, or abandonment. This type is rooted in conflict anxiety, emotional suppression, and often a kind of learned helplessness, where your nervous system believes it's safer to disappear than to upset anyone. If you're the avoider, you may have a fearful, avoidant, or anxious attachment style, deeply wanting connection, but too afraid of rocking the boat to actually ask for what you need. So how does the avoider show up? You agree even when you don't. You say yes when you really mean no. You avoid harsh conversations at all costs, even if it means betraying your own feelings. You minimize your opinions, needs, and presence just to keep the peace. You might find yourself feeling invisible in relationships, not because others don't care about you, but because you are hiding parts of yourself to avoid conflict. You avoid asking for what you really need, and you tell yourself it's not a big deal, even when it actually is. And while on the outside you seem easygoing, agreeable, inside there's often resentment, exhaustion, and deep loneliness because no one really sees the real you. So you might ask, where do you need to work on, or what do you need to work on if you're the avoider? Your growth starts with learning to tolerate the discomfort of conflict and realizing that disagreement doesn't equal danger. It means practicing expressing your own needs, even when your voice shakes. It means reminding yourself that you are allowed to take up space, even if someone else doesn't like it. When you stop equating harmony with safety, you can finally show up as your full self and create relationships where you are actually seen and valued for who you are, not just for keeping the peace. So that's the avoider, the one who earns safety by keeping the peace. And those are the three main types of people-pleasing. But remember what I promised you at the beginning, there are also two sneaky, unexpected types that you might not even realize are forms of people-pleasing. So let's talk about those next. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you're ready to actually rewire these deep patterns on a nervous system and subconscious level, join my Mind Mastery community where I help you do exactly that with tools like EMDR, somatic techniques, and mindset rewiring. You will find the link below in the description or in the pinned comment. Okay, as promised, here are the two bonus types of people-pleasing that are a little bit more sneaky and unexpected. The chameleon is the one who blends in completely. They adapt their personality, opinions, even their likes and dislikes depending on who they are with, just to belong and to avoid rejection. They become whoever they think the situation needs them to be, often without even realizing it. I personally know this pattern deeply. Growing up in a cult, I learned to adjust and blend into any situation because being myself didn't feel safe and actually wasn't safe. Over time, this can leave you feeling really disconnected from your own identity because you're always performing instead of just being yourself. And then there is the rebel-pleaser, the one who hides their people-pleasing behind humor, charm, or even defiance. We know them all. They're the funny ones. They act independent, maybe even provocative, or they are the funny one, as I just said, the clown, the entertainer, but underneath it all, they still crave approval and connection. And this type often feels safer getting attention through humor or rebellion because direct vulnerability feels too risky. It's still people-pleasing, just disguised. I didn't go as deep into these two because I'd love to hear from you now. Let me know in the comments which type you resonate with the most. And if you want a full in-depth explanation of the chameleon or the rebel-pleaser, drop it below in the comments too, and I'll create another video just on those two. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to see what you share below in the comments.